Thank you so much if you're just joining us. This is Apex One Radio. And so it's Saturday, November the 30th, 2024. It's exactly 8 minutes past 3 here in the studio of Apex One Radio. Thank you so much if you're just joining us. My name is Ernest KANJO. Marcel is in Walsuch in Germany. He's controlling this first segment of broadcast on your favorite station digitally from that end. Once again, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you are just joining us, welcome on board. We broadcast 24/7 from the state of Ohio, precisely from the age-old city of Columbus. That is the chief city of the state of Ohio in the Midwest region of the country. And so it's another fresh edition of Apex Snapshots book version, which is about to kick off here live on Apex One Radio. And just like yesterday, we are receiving yet another Somali book author as a continuation of a series of interviews with Somali authors here on Apex One Radio. Thank you once again and welcome on board. It's a beautiful Saturday here, not quite cold as yesterday. Beautiful weather in Columbus, Ohio. I guess it's the same thing in Minnesota here in the United States of America. Minnesota, from where the guests in today's edition of Apex Snapshots will be speaking. Just a moment from now, we will be receiving our guests on the show today. But then, if you are just joining us on Facebook, time for you to share the video. For those of you who are joining us on apex1radio.com, thank you so much for doing so. We appreciate your time and, of course, your fidelity to this station. And like I said, for those of you who want to follow us on our various social media platforms, especially Facebook, it is time for you to share this video extensively. Now, let me just go ahead and say welcome to our guest who is on the other side, that is in Minnesota, hopefully. Ahmed Ismail Yusuf is his name. He is a book author and he'll be our guest on the show today. Ahmed, welcome to the show. How are you doing today? Well, apparently we cannot hear you, so you may want to fix your sound. Let me know if you can hear us. Good afternoon and welcome as you admit yourself. Okay, looks like we still have issues. You have to admit yourself, Ahmed, so we can hear you.
Can you
Can
hear
you?
me?
Yes, I can hear you 5 on 5 now. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm actually doing well. Thanks for inviting me. And
All right.
it's such a beautiful day. So let me see if I can.
Apparently I can't hear you again. You may want to just go without the headsets as you admit yourself. Can you hear me now?
That's it. I'm done. Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. It works that way. So, how is Minnesota today, and in which city of Minnesota are you speaking from?
I am actually based in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, in
I have
Minneapolis.
no idea what the weather like, even though I
Okay.
have been here for almost a quarter, half a century almost.
Oh, okay. That's
I'm still
interesting.
living I'm somehow living somewhere in Africa. So until I go out, I have no idea what the weather is like.
I know it's hard to get used to the weather conditions, especially in the Midwest. Minnesota, Massachusetts, Ohio. It's really hard to get used to the weather.
Yeah, it's true.
Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. So, thank you so much. And like I said, you are a book author. You hail from Somalia, and of course, just last week we had the Somali authors book event in Minnesota, which you were part of. We'll be talking about that in this edition of the show as well, and of course, we'll talk about your career as a book author, your prospects, the books you've published. We'll look at some of those books, and of course, the future of the book industry and the Somali community, not just in Minnesota, but here in the United States of America. But before we get there, just to say that books remain a timeless source of inspiration, knowledge, and storytelling in a world that is captivated by the electronic media. And talking about the electronic media, everyone is getting so glued to videos and streaming platforms these days. Yet, authors continue to craft narratives that not only entertain but also educate and preserve cultures. And the immigrant community in the United States of America is making remarkable strides in this realm. Now, African immigrants are adding to the growing volumes of books in circulation, showcasing their rich heritage and unique perspectives through their written works. And the Somali community in the United States is a shining example of this literary renaissance. And so, across the country, Somali authors are stepping into the spotlight, contributing significantly to the growth of their book industry. And in Minnesota, where our guests will be speaking, over 40 Somali authors have been identified. And this is a testimony to the thriving literary talent within that community. Just last week, like I mentioned earlier, these authors gathered at the Somali Authors Book event in Minnesota, celebrating their shared passion for writing and storytelling. Among these talented individuals was Ahmed Ismail Yusuf, who proudly exhibited two of his books, that is Somalis in Minnesota and The Lion's Binding Oath. Now, Ahmed, raised in a nomadic environment, is the author of three books as we speak. That is Gol Goki Yimi, which is a Somali short story collection. The Lion's Binding Oath, which is a collection of short stories in English and Somalis in Minnesota. His short stories have been featured in Bilhan. Bilhan is an international journal of Somali studies, and Mitzna, which is an Arab American literary magazine. So these are academic books. I guess he will tell us more about that. Also, his play titled A Crack in the Sky was staged at the History Theater in St. Paul, and other plays were performed at Pangier and Mixed Bloom Theater. Now, Yusuf has also published articles on mental health in journals such as Journal of Muslim Mental Health, Social Psychiatry and Psychiatric Epidemiology, and Psychiatry Times, as well as in the International Society of Traumatic Stress Studies. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Creative Writing and Psychology from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and an MPA from Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota. And so that's the guests we will be receiving on radio today. In continuation of the series of interviews with Somali authors, Apex Snapshots receives Yusuf Ismail Ahmed on their show today. Our guest will be sharing his journey in book writing and, of course, what he has up his sleeves. So sit back, relax, and, of course, enjoy every bit of what we'll be discussing today on radio in this edition of Apex Snapshots book version. And so, if you're just joining us, thank you so much and welcome to the show. My name is Ernest. Marcel is producing the show from Walsuk in Germany. Once again, thank you and welcome. Now, without much ado, let's start the conversation with our guest on the show today. Once again, Yusuf. Should I call you Ahmed or Yusuf? Which one do you prefer?
Just same to me, but Ahmed, I don't know what your um, African nationality or background actually allows you, but I don't care about last name and all that titles. That
let's
goes
go.
along.
Let's go with Ahmed. All
Yes.
right. So thank you once again and welcome to the program. Before we start, I would like to know, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born actually atop on a mountain somewhere in Somalia, far
Mm,
away from civilization. So,
mm,
at an early age, I was actually a goat and sheep herder until the age of about, I think, 9. I don't exactly know the date that I was born on. I think you can attest to that. Most of
mm.
Africans are familiar with that kind of history line.
Right.
So yes, that's where I grew up. But right after I started school in a village, just moved on to a bigger city that it is called Ergafo, the Elf or Ergabo, at the
Mhm,
edge of the Red Sea, somewhere in Somalia. So that was exactly my earliest, or yes, that's
mhm.
where I started, how I
Mhm.
started life.
I got interested when you said you were born on the top of the mountain. Are you saying that you were born in a city that is located maybe on a hill, or you were born on the top of a mountain? As a matter of fact.
Literally, I was born on the top of a mountain.
Okay.
So my family were nomad at the time, even though later on that we moved to a place that we call um, we actually, I think we borrowed the word from English and call it permanent. We
Hmm.
mispronounce it, so we call permanent,
Hmm.
which means permanent, I think, in English.
Okay.
So we later on stationed somewhere ourselves that was close to a
Hmm.
village. But yes, we were nomads when I was coming of age.
That's interesting. Tell me about your education.
Well, I started, as I said, I started in a village somewhere in Somalia, moved on
Hmm.
to a bigger city. And then in high school, I actually dropped out of high school because that's when the Somalis were getting into some kind of a turmoil. So I sense that exactly that what I went to school for was not what was offering. I realized uh, there was a lot of miseducation and misinformation, and in other words, indoctrination.
Hmm.
So I actually, yes, I rebelled against the government at an early age and dropped out of high school. So I do not know how much of education that I got in Somalia, but still I'm appreciative for whatever that was offered to me because it
Hmm.
made me who I am today still.
Hmm. Beautiful. And so, like we mentioned in the intro, he holds a bachelor's degree in creative writing and psychology, and of course, a master's degree as well from Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs. His name
Mhm.
is Ahmed Ismail Yusuf. He is a book author. He hails from Somalia and he's speaking live from Minnesota. Right. So once again, thank you. If you're just joining us, share the video if you're watching us on Facebook. Tell us about your relationship with writing. For how long have you been writing, and where did this love for writing come from?
Oh, it was a total serendipity. I think it was, I stumbled on it.
Hmm.
Once I came to United States, first of all, I had this knowing uh, and thirst for books. I did not
Hmm.
have I did not have an opportunity to read books in Somalia. They
Hmm.
were not actually available at all, even if I wanted to. So once I arrived in the United States, one day in Harlem, actually in New York, a relative of mine just dumped dozens of books on my lap, and I did not read a single book. Well, actually, I read two books on each. One
Hmm.
uh, was actually missing the last half, so I didn't finish those books in Somalia, and both of them were in Somali. That
Mm,
was my extent of 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 reading, or extent of books that were exposed to me.
mhm,
So when this relative actually gave me those dozens of books, I was not able to say. I was actually ashamed to say that I have never read a whole book,
mhm,
and I was even also um, I was also still, yes, more ashamed to say that I am not able to read in English. So um, as a dad, I just took the books and then put right in front of me, and then was not was uh, did not have the heart actually to pick any one of them for quite a
mhm,
while. So the books harassed the hell out of me. Anyway, finally I just got the courage to pick one book, and that book was an African American writer, celebrated writer,
mhm,
my uncle.
mhm,
The book was
mhm,
called I Know Why the Cage Bird I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings.
mhm.
Um, that completely changed my prospect. That was a revelation to me. And a woman
Right.
that I did not know, that all the way 7,000 miles away from home, just resonated and just gave me the message, and a message that I wasn't expecting was just going to cut through to me. So she opened up a whole world to me that I
Mhm,
kind of actually Malcolm X and Frederick Douglass, African American literary protest literature was
mhm.
what exactly introduced me to reading, as well as had me actually interested in writing.
And today he is a book author. He has authored three books so far: Gorgiki Yemi, The Lions Biding Oath, and of course, Somalis in Minnesota. He's also done academic articles published in academic journals. So, what kind of books do you write? These three books you've written, under what category do they fall? Is it drama? Is it poetry? Is it prose?
I think it's prose as well
Mm,
as academic books. I'm not exactly saying that I'm smart, but I have somehow or the other happen to have have been to publish in both in fiction and academic world. Uh,
mhm,
Plays also, maybe a few articles. So yes, fiction mostly. Actually, I could say mostly of what I write is fiction.
mhm,
I think the word that people normally gravitate toward is an inspiration.
mhm,
Uh, Even though I don't believe in inspiration, I could still say or rely on that it comes from Somali songs,
mhm,
which based on poetry in nature.
mhm. That's good. We'll find time some other day and talk about the articles you've written and published in
Mm.
academic journals. But today, let's focus on the books, and we'll be looking at two of those books today, beginning with the Lions Binding Oath. The Lions Binding Oath. Now, tell me,
Yeah.
when did you write this book?
This book was published 2018,
Hmm.
right here.
Okay.
So mostly it's fiction. However, there are histories that are based on actual event.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so what I try to do with this book is just that there are many versions of it, but the version that I would like to share with you today is just the version that tells the rest of the world that
Hmm.
we are not always fighting with one another. There, we were once a country,
Hmm.
just like anyone else who was enjoying soccer, theater, just life itself.
Hmm.
So. I try to bring you all the way from the nomadic life, and then how peaceful, serene, and beautiful life was in Somalia once upon a time. And then all of a sudden, when everything fall apart or fell apart, and that's when exactly that's where I just try to raise an allegorical story of a lion raising a child. So when I'm saying lion is finding oath, it is a title that it is originated from Somali language that literally says a lions get into oath. For example, when a man comes across a lion, if they agree and sworn to each other that they were not going to harm one another, the lion lives up to that oath. Okay, but that is if the man also lives up to the promise of just keeping that oath, and that he doesn't talk about the lion, that he doesn't tell anybody there is a dangerous animal or a predator among us. So that's I'm trying to bring you all the way from the nomadic life of where you're herding sheep and goat peacefully on a top of a mountain, and then to the city where you're just going to enjoy a soccer game just like anyone else, or maybe a play in a theater. And then again, when the things just exactly were not when we lost it all, and Somalia disintegrated into a chaos.
So I want you to explain the use of the lion in this instance. Is it deliberate? Because the lion, as you all know, is a very fierce animal, wild beast. They call it the king of the jungle. So did you deliberately use the lion just to come out with the severity of maybe the conflict that has existed in Somalia over the decades?
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. That's actually a great question. Yes, I deliberately chose that uh, story. It is a short story. So the history itself is just saying that there is the protagonist is a teenager that who just going to live. He's just going to. He is one of the exodus that left the Mali that left Mogadishu once the capital was about to fall, and then somewhere in between Somalia and Kenya, he was just so exhausted that he got lost and stray away from his family and the rest of the people. And in the middle of the jungle, all of a sudden, here he's helpless creature. And all of a sudden, he came face to face with the most dangerous predator in the continent of Africa. And here he's standing right in front of this lion. But what happened was just that somehow or the other, the lion did not attack him. Not only attack him, but the lion entered out with him, raised the child, and until later on that he brought it into the same community. So what I was just trying to say was just that you idiots are killing your offsprings, but lion is able to actually save him, and he survived. A child can survive through the wilderness, but cannot survive among us.
Who is this book written for? Who has to read it? Is it a book written for Somalis?
I think such a question is normally perplexes me. It is tough, but for me, first of all, it is the Somalis in diaspora, particularly the those that who were raised outside of Somalia, that always just heard from us that Somalia was once a country to admire, Somalia was once a viable democracy and all that, or Somalia was a country, period. I want them to know what life was like before the war. And again, people also that who do not know much about Somalia, whoever they are, whether they are actually Westerners or whether they are Africans, most of Africans know of each other, not intimately or not in details, but we have some kind of a general idea about each other. So what I just try to showcase is, or what I just, what the histories that I try to tell are histories that I think that exactly that the Westerns might actually glean a bit of what Somalia was like once upon a time.
We're speaking with Ahmed Ismail Yusuf, author of 3 books, one of which is The Lion's Binding Oath, a book that was exhibited at the Somalis Authors event last week in Minnesota. He's live from Minneapolis, talking to us on Apex Snapshot this day, Saturday, November the 30th. 2024, and the show is Apex Snapshots. My name is Ernest. KANJO. It's exactly 26 minutes to 4 here in the studio of Apex One Radio 234 in Minnesota. I know some people have read this book so far. It is still in circulation. More people are surely buying the book. Tell me, what has been the reaction from those who have read the book so far? What are they telling you?
Well, I haven't mostly I haven't access to South Africans when it comes to our continent, because the publisher is an expert on somebody. She's not only an expert on the continent itself, but she is connected to actually South Africa. She has an agent there. So most of the Africans were actually delighted with the history and the book itself. So most of the positive reviews came from South Africans, as a matter of fact. Somalis, I do not know how much Somalis know about it. We always complain about people of Somali descent or Somalis in my generation do not know much about books. So whoever read the book has actually just said good things about it, but I do not know how many of them or how how many people just know about the book.
Right.
Yes.
So in what language is The Lion's Binding Oath written? English, I guess.
Yes, the Lion's Binding Oath is actually English. It's in English.
And I do understand that English is not your first language. Definitely should be Arabic. Am I correct?
No, it's Somali actually.
Somalia. Okay.
Yes.
So you wrote in English for a book which Somalis are going to read, including the ones who perhaps may not master the English language. So how simple is the English in this book, which can be read and understood?
I don't know how simple it is, but actually, some of my friends do complain about. they just hinted, as a matter of fact, that I am using in English that is possibly not proper, or actually not the level that they expected it to. So it's not that I'm bragging about my ability to write in English, and I don't think English my forte to begin with anyway, because any language that you are not born with, you is still somehow or the other. You have weaknesses.
Sure.
And to some extent, you cannot fully express yourself, or you think that you always have a limit of the language that you are borrowing or maybe imitating to some extent. What I also know is just that even if I am expressing and possibly an ability to write in English, I'm always questioning myself. which is when I am writing in Somali, I have no restriction whatsoever.
Mhm.
But when it comes to creativity, I think I gravitate towards English because that limitation forces you to focus.
Right. Mm.
Yeah, but when you have a language of which you have no limitation,
Mhm.
also your imagination may run away
Mm.
with you or run away from you.
Mhm.
Either way,
That's
yes.
good.
But yes, but English is not exactly a language. It's
Mhm.
not an easy language, and it's not a language that we can claim a mastery of.
That's true. Mhm. So, is this book written in chapters?
It is actually in short stories, so you can start it from
Okay.
wherever you want to some extent.
Okay.
I am recommending it. I will say exactly.
Mm.
Start it from the beginning. There is also a thread that goes through it. There is a novella that it
Mm.
is addressing a caste system in Somalia because,
Mhm.
ironically, there are Somali minorities that we happen to discriminate against.
Mhm. So, how many
So,
of those stories do we have in the book?
say that again.
How many of those short stories do we have in this book?
I have no clue. I think I'm not. I'm not even sure how many are there.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
And while you
I
you
think
you think that up, okay.
I,
And
I,
while you think that
I think
up,
it's eight. It's nine or so. Yeah,
nine.
go ahead.
Perfect. And what is the volume of the book? How many pages is it written in?
It is about one. Let me see. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I never seen those things. So you. So it's actually 188.
One eight
188.
eight.
Yeah,
All right.
188. Yep.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
I like us to talk about the cover of the book.
Yes.
I see the title is boldly printed there, the lion's binding oath. But then at
Mm.
the upper right, like the upper right corner of the book, we have.
Yeah.
Should be. I see something like a lion. Then somebody
Yes. Yes.
walking
Yes.
behind that lion, and I
Mhm.
would imagine that people don't go that close to to lions. So what I
Right.
try to illustrate there.
Oh, well, as a matter of fact, yeah, I didn't design the of course, the cover. This cover designer was uh, which I ashamed to say that I don't remember her name.
Mm,
Please forgive me. A South African again.
mhm,
A legendary South African that who is well, really accomplished
mhm,
artist. But I loved it. I loved it because what I was just trying to, what I see was just that what I was just trying to convey in the story, that this predator that we all fear is also a gentle in this
mhm,
story, and
mhm,
that a child that who was lost,
mm,
I just befriending that predator, and he's that close to it.
mhm.
So,
And
uh, yeah, go ahead.
and this is what I notice with my lay interpretive mind. I see a
Yes,
lion walking in front of a human being.
yeah,
Otherwise, it would be a lion face to face with a human being. You know, attacking or pushing inwards. But you see a
right,
lion going, and a human being is behind it. This is strange. It should have a message.
absolutely. Because the message is the lion actually, to some extent, surrender his
Mhm,
soul, his entire soul, and his broodness to
mhm,
this child or to this man. So what he's just exactly saying is just that, listen, in a way, you, what he's just exactly saying is just that you don't only trust me, but you should follow me. I'm
okay.
the one that which is going to lead you to where we can have a drink. I'm just
Mm,
going to lead you where you are going to be in peace. I'm going
mhm,
to lead you where you're going to be safe. And none of that was provided to him by
mm,
his own people. Did not provide that to him.
mhm. So this book should have uh, like this book should have its place in Somali politics and the life of that country. I don't know, maybe since independence or even before independence, that country has been in perpetual conflict. We all know about it. So, when you were writing this book, what was on your mind? Is it one of the books or one of your works you were thinking that would contribute to maybe bring lasting peace to this country that has suffered for so many decades?
Yeah, yeah, I think it is such a huge responsibility. I think it's such an ego when
Mm,
someone writes an article and just article of about 500 words and thinks that exactly that he's just going to capture the hearts and the minds and the hearts and the minds of the people that he intended it to read. I think in my case, I was just also just like was just trying to bring attention to few things. First, the caste system that I'm talking about. One, second, to tribalism. Third, the political turmoil that I don't see any end to it, or no one sees any end to it. So I was just trying at least to get an audience that maybe can um, just try to read this piece and ruminate on the ramification
mm,
of of the consequences of
mhm,
this um, turmoil that we have been embarked upon,
mhm. This book
of we have
should
embarked.
mhm. This book should surely have a very I mean, a soft spot in your heart because it is a book that sends a very strong message. Tell us how you went about writing it. Tell us about the process. How were you inspired? You know, all the days you were working on this book. How were the ideas coming, and how were you putting these ideas together in form of writing and so on? Could you just explain that process and how long did it last?
I think I have been writing, or had been writing actually for maybe years, because one story, I published one story and then another and then another. And then later on, when I decided it was going to be a book, I think it was less than maybe a year or yeah, a year and a half, just exactly
Mm,
trying to tie up the loose ends and
mm,
somehow or the other just try to find a thread through all the um, all the trajectory of the story itself.
mm,
So time wise, I'm not exactly sure how long it took, but well, I forgot the other half of the story. So of the question.
mm. Right. This is Apex One Radio. We're broadcasting live from the United States of America. We're speaking with Ahmed Ismail Yusuf. He is a book author and he has published three works already, one of which we're currently talking about, titled The Lion's Binding Oath. And this book saw not seen the light of the per se, but it was exhibited at the Somali Authors Book event last week in Minnesota. What is the cover price of this book? I know it's available on Amazon, correct?
Yes, different prices, and as a matter of fact, sometimes I don't even know. But when I'm selling it, I sell it for 20.
Mm,
So while we at it, I'm going to go back to the question. I think I got I sort of somewhat.
mhm,
I think I recouped the question again.
mhm,
So it was the inspiration. I think the inspiration is sometimes a story or maybe an incident that does not go away, that stays with me, that keeps on knowing somehow, um, somehow singing somewhere back in my mind. And at times it forces you just to sit down and just say something about it. And
Mm,
sometimes it's an issue that also bothers you uh, or it stimulates your mind, and to some extent, whether you enjoy it or whether you are harassed by it, you just exactly try to do something about that too. So
mhm.
I think also what I came to know is just that inspiration that's not exactly it is not a revelation that comes from a God.
Mhm.
It's it's not something that comes to you
You
and
want
just
to
say,
fix,
"Hey,
you want to
this."
fix your camera a little bit? Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. How's that? Is that okay?
Uh, a little bit more.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Perfect. Go right ahead.
okay. So it is sometimes the inspiration is not exactly a revelation that comes from a God, and you are just going to move and write,
Mhm.
um, and just going to hit the keyboard. But it is a hard work. It is just that you have to commit yourself. I think the hardest part for me is just exactly to sit down and keep on going. It is just that
Mhm.
you don't want to face the blank page.
Beautiful. Marcel Ajir is the producer of this show. Special collaboration is coming from Ra Noor. Thank you so much, Nasra, for making this interview possible. My name is Ernest KANJO, host of Apex Snapshot's book version, and of course, the edition of the 30th of November 2024. It's exactly 11 minutes to 4 here in the studio of Apex One Radio. And in Minneapolis, where our guest is speaking, it's exactly 2:49 p.m. So let's talk about Somalis in Minnesota. I came across the book, though I haven't read it, but the title itself is really interesting, and it tells me that the author is saying something about Somalis who live in Minnesota. The first question that came to my mind is there something special about Somalis in Minnesota? Are they different from Somalis in in Ohio? Are they different from Somalis in Texas? Well, we'll get to know more about that. But then, when did you write Somalis in Minnesota?
Somalis in Minnesota was published in 2012.
Mhm,
Minnesota Historical Society, the premier historical society of the state,
mhm,
commissioned this book, and it is a part of a series of books called People of Minnesota.
okay.
So yeah, any ethnicity, majority of the ethnicities that they think are contributing to the well-being of the state or contributing somewhat to the state are asked to write a book, and I happen to write the Somali one.
Mhm. You may not be you know an active actor in maybe uh, Minnesota demographics, but because you've written a book talking about Somalis in Minnesota, you should definitely have an idea of you know what we're about to talk about. So, how many Somalis live in Minnesota if we want to go by statistics, or if these statistics do exist?
It's really tough to nail Somalis when it when it comes to number, but I think
Mhm,
we are approaching. I think we are more than 100,000 now.
mm,
We are quite visible. We are everywhere.
mm,
We somehow or the other are in where we are. Uh, 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 we are not only visible, but right now we, in every strata of Minnesotans, you
mm,
can see a Somali in it. You can see us in politics, and actually, I think we are thriving in
mhm.
politics. As a matter of fact, um,
Min-
you see us in businesses. You see us in a corporate America. You see us in well, you see us in crimes too, of which
right,
I don't like to admit.
unfortunately. Minnesota is,
So,
is one of the fears of the Somali community in the United States of America, and I begin to wonder why that concentration of Somalis in Minnesota. So, do you have a background of how Minnesota Somalis chose Minnesota as one of the places where they had to concentrate?
as a matter of fact, it's quite a story how we happen to be in Minnesota. Normally, people that who I should say, particularly the conservatives, just will tell you, or some ill-informed people tell you just that we are here just because of generous welfare in Minnesota. But that's not why Somalis are concentrated, or majority of Somalis in the United States are concentrated in this state. The fact is, the Somalis that who came here use the traditional Somali nomadic natural behavior. As a matter of fact, they came here. There are three words that are used in this book, and all three are actually Somali. One is news. Somalis are ADIG news watchers. Other is Sahan, which is scouting or pioneering. And Somalis in nomadic life will send someone from where the family is concentrated, send someone away to scout an area of where the grazing grass is plenty, where there are no animals that are going to harm them, where there's still no war. When that person goes there, he comes back to the community and tells them about the Sahan itself, meaning the scouting, and just says, well, I just found this place that it is much better than the place that we are living. So that person is normally not harmed when he is just going through when he's going through one community to the other. People host him, people actually feed him, people also just exactly respect the way that he's going about his business. So, in other words, and I should say first, the third word was, third word is martisor, which is another Somali word, hospitality. So hospitality, news, and pioneering or scouting are what brought the Somalis here. What they found out was just that there were jobs that were available in the western part of the state, where the population was just actually older or getting old, where there were a lot of jobs, particularly in meat processing plants that were not processing pork, turkey meat processing plants that needed night shift at the time. It was only 3 men. They advertised actually a night shift that was available. 3 Somali men came to find out whether this news was viable, whether this was true. And once they got there, they were not asked whether they had experience, what the skills, and what language. Nothing actually. It was physical. The 3 men were hired right there, and then the 3 men just sent the word out.
Can you adjust the camera a little bit, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so Somalis were then concentrated in San Diego because San Diego had some kind of San Diego has a climate that it is amiable, or maybe sort of somewhat similar to that of their background. So most Somalis were concentrated in San Diego, and then every Somali will call San Diego because San Diego also had an older Somali generation that who came to that state in 1980s. Those were the ones that were speaking English. Those were the ones that were given that whenever that Somalis wanted to ask information that they would call. So the word got to San Diego that there was a job that did not need any experience or any skills. They sent their own people also to authenticate that news. They came from San Diego. A group of Somalis came from San Diego. They were hired right there. Just the word exploded then all over Sudan, all over the United States. So Somalis actually filled jobs there that no one was actually filling. Like those that I'm talking about, like the hospitality industry, like parking lots, like car, I mean, rental car companies, any job that no one wanted. So the people that were first came here were the people that were not
Beautiful.
skilled.
So I know Somalis are industrious. They like school. They are friendly people. But apart from these qualities, is there anything specific or peculiar or special about the Somalis who live in the state of Minnesota?
Yes, somehow or the other they concentrated, particularly first they actually were concentrated mostly in Minneapolis, even though they started life the outside of Minneapolis, and then what helped them was just that they somehow or the other forget about whatever happened in the past in Somalia. They were helping one another. They were close to one another. They were in same neighborhood. They, in terms of when it comes to business, they invested on each other. So it was just also the viability and availability of jobs that contributed to their growth.
So let us
But they
let
have
us look at, let us get into the book proper. So how is it written? What is the style? I would imagine, maybe wrongly, that you have maybe selected some influential members of the Somali communities and profiled them, or how is it written? Is it just writing about Somalis in Minnesota generally, without pinpointing some maybe key figures in that community?
I started it first. I just gave a little bit of a background of why we are here. Actually, I gave a little bit of a background of what brought us here, the historical context. I put a little bit of a context with the historical events that just forced us to be in Minnesota. Then I just you're right. I just selected a few luminaries. That's why Minnesota and how they themselves happen to be in this state, businesses and sort of sort of those areas, and then chose people, and then just talk about the businesses that were the businesses that were created in the state, and businesses that were born of this struggle, or people that were just exactly striving to make a better life for themselves.
That is interesting. So, just like the other book, is this one written in chapters as well? Or
Yeah,
just
it was just It was just designed by the publisher, so they will tell you how many words. They will tell you what chapter. So yeah, it's not. It is not that long, but it is by chapters. Actually, it's by topic.
written in English as well? Okay. So tell us about your publishers, especially for the two books. How did you get in touch with these publishers, and who are they?
Oh, the first book, Somalis in Minnesota, they were the ones that somehow or the other found me. Actually, they didn't found me, but two friends of mine contributed. Two friends of mine, one was approached, and one actually gave me the idea. Idea was not even mine, as a matter of fact. The inspiration itself came from two friends of mine. One found the publisher, and the publisher just said, found the publisher, because the publisher has asked a professor friend of mine, Awa Abdi, who teaches at the University of Minnesota. Yes. They asked her to write a book, so she said, "I'm not available right now, but I will find you someone." So that's how the publisher found me and commissioned the book. The other one was just that a friend of mine once asked me, this is the funny thing, a friend of mine who is also Abdi Hussein, I'm just mentioning his name here too, asked me to proofread an article that he once wrote. And the article just mesmerized the heck out of me. But I never thought that I was going to do anything about the article itself. That article became the genesis of the book itself because he was the one that illuminated the fact that Somalis were using their nomadic upbringing to navigate through life in the United States, and that's how they found in this state itself. So, yeah, that's Somalis in Minnesota. The other one was just accidental. How I also found the publisher. The publisher is called a Catalyst Press. It is a woman that who loved the continent. All her books, all the books that she published, African background. So that's somehow or other we actually were in a. I think we were in a. Yeah, we were in a we were in a conference, and that's that. It's
Adjust your camera.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, just adjust your camera for me. Thank you so much. This is Apex One Radio. Would you adjust your camera a little bit, Ahmed?
Sorry. Yes.
We're gradually gradually but steadily moving to the end of this edition of Apex Snapshots book version. Our guest is Ahmed Ismail Yusuf, author of 3 books, 2 of which we are focusing on in this edition of the show. We've just talked about The Lions Binding Oath, and we're now talking about Somalis in Minnesota. But quickly and briefly, have you officially launched these 2 books?
Oh yes, I did, but I don't think I actually did
the book signing.
Well, book signing, yeah, particularly, yeah, both of them. But I just realized that everything needs a bit of an experience. So I don't think actually I promoted the book as best as I could, but yes, I did.
Okay. And last week you were at the Somali Authors Book event. Tell us how you got to be part of this and how did it go?
Well, actually, it went well. Thanks to Nasra, who just put the whole thing together. So at least what we didn't even know about each other. So I think we just going to continue from then on, and that's how I actually found you too. So of course it was a positive endeavor.
What future do you envisage for Somali literature? I was amazed when I was told that there are over 40 book authors from your community living in the state of Minnesota alone. So if you go across the country, we're talking about hundreds of people from Somalia background who've written books. So what does this tell you? What is the future you are envisaging?
Oh, it seems that if I use the phrase that an American phrase that the sky is the limit, I think there are a young generation that who speak English as their first language. There are ambitious group of actual writers right on the horizon. So I think soon we're just going to have people of the world are just going to hear from Somalis. So I think we're going to have our representatives, and maybe who knows, we will represent the continent well.
We're looking forward.
We'll carry the name on.
So these books are available on Amazon, correct?
Wherever books are sold, yes.
Okay, perfect. And Somalis in Minnesota is also $20 for the cover price, correct?
Yes, I think a little bit under, but yes,
Mm.
almost
Okay.
17. So yeah,
So
like it says actually 1795.
oh,
But
perfect.
yes.
So if there are people who live in Minnesota who want to procure copies of your book, how can they reach you? I'm saying that because if I'm in a state where you live, I'll definitely want to have my own copy autographed by the author. So how can they reach you?
Or if they want to email me, actually, I think it's online,
Mhm,
or still I could leave it here.
mhm,
But the books are available everywhere that books are sell. Yes, I'm not. I should say I'm not that organized, so I don't have a website on my of mine. Uh,
mhm,
but if they anybody that was interested, just can go to the to Amazon, or
mhm,
even in that matter to the website of Catalyst Press, and just order it from there online.
mhm,
Yes, the well, yes, there's online version too.
mhm. Okay, that's interesting. We're about to run off this edition of the show. So, just before you go away, Ahmed, I would like you to speak to young Somalis and maybe other aspiring book authors who are hoping to have books exhibited in public places, just like you've done. What advice would you tell them? And what are the challenges, in this venture? And how can you maneuver around these challenges?
Oh, such a great question. I think what I know now that I would like to pass on is just that once you write a book, don't listen to anybody. Just
Mhm,
promote yourself too. Promote yourself not exactly shamefully. Well, as a matter of fact, there's no shame. I just
mhm,
came to know there's no shame on promoting yourself, because
mm.
I have been waiting people to come on, to knock on my door. No one's going to knock on your door.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, the more you shout, the more books that you are going to sell. Whether the book's valuable or not, that's another case. Of course, you put an effort to this, but what you should do is just as once you write, don't wait from anybody else.
Mm.
Just try to shout at the top of your lungs. Yeah, the way that exactly that you package your message matters too. So of course, you're going to try to keep your wit about you, and your and your integrity about you too, but at the same time try not to hide, and try not to wait for anybody else, not to wait for
Really,
anybody else to come to your rescue.
you definitely have your own stories to tell. Why not translate the stories into books? And when you do write, do not hide yourself. Be your own marketer, because no one is going to run behind you. So market yourself as much as you can. Beautiful advice there from Ahmed Yusuf Ismail, book author from the Somali community. He was speaking live from Minneapolis in Minnesota. Want to thank you so much for joining us on the program today, Ahmed Ismail. Definitely down the road, we'll get back to you so that we can continue this beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you, such a pleasure. Thanks, Ernest.
All right. Do have a fantastic rest of the day. And for those of you who watched us on this show, and for those of you who are listening on apex1radio.com, we want to thank you for your time. Keep listening to programs on Apex One Radio. Go out there and have a wonderful weekend for yourself. Marcel Ajed was the producer of this show. My name is Ernest Kanto. Special thanks to Nasra Noor for her wonderful collaboration in this edition of Apex Snapshots book version, just on Apex One Radio. May God continue to bless you abundantly. Bye for now.